All right, so on homework 39, we are simplifying radical expressions. Most of the time we'll be doing square roots, but when we simplify these, we could either simplify underneath first and then multiply, or we can just go ahead and multiply, which is what we're going to do because our numbers aren't very big. If your numbers were like 216 or something like that, I'd probably simplify it first, but since it's a 2 and a 6, I can multiply those pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead multiply what's under the square roots together. So 2 times 6 is 12. X squared times an x, I add my exponents, so x to the third. U to the fourth times a u squared, u to the sixth power. So now I want to simplify what I have there like we did on Monday's page. I'm going to look at this and say, okay, 12 is not a perfect square. If it were a perfect square, I'd leave it alone. It's not, so I want to try to factor it. Factors of 12, one of which is a perfect square. Probably want to use 4 times 3. My exponents, if it's an odd exponent, I want to factor out one of them. So x to the third, I factor into x squared times x. U to the sixth has an even exponent, which means it is a perfect square, so I leave that alone, just like we did the other day. And then I'm going to go ahead and take out my perfect squares. So square root of 4 is 2. Square root of x to the second would be x to the first, because I take half of my exponent. Square root of u to the sixth is u to the third. Again, taking half of my exponent. And I have the 3 and the x left underneath my square root. And so I get 2xu cubed square root of 3x. So basically all you're going to do is multiply them together and then simplify them like we did the other day. So number 2, if we multiply that together, what would we have under our square root?
36y to the 10, w to the 10.
And I look at that and I say, okay, 36 is a perfect square, I'm going to leave that alone. Y to the 10th is a perfect square because it has an even exponent, I'm going to leave that alone. And w to the 10th is also a perfect square, I'm going to leave that alone. I don't need to factor anything out because all of my values there are perfect squares and I can just take my square roots. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of y to the 10th, y to the 5th, and square root of w to the 10th, w to the 5th. And I have nothing left under the square root since everything was perfect squares. My radical sign is gone. I just get 6y to the 5th and w to the 5th. Number 3 then, when I go ahead and multiply that one, I would get
36, 36x to the 6th, u to the 7th.
u to the 7th. So looking at that one, the 36 is a perfect square, the x to the 6th is a perfect square, but the u to the 7th is not. What would we want to do with the u to the 7th?
Break it down to u to the 6th times u.
Break it down into u to the 6th times u. Take out one of my variables. So now if I take out my perfect squares, I can take out
36.
square root of 36 is 6.
X to the third.
X to the third.
U to the third.
U to the third. And left under the radical, square root of u. So 6x to the third, u to the third, square root of u would be my answer.